Ngalakin kadijan nyunga boja.
Okay, you guys should be receiving some message.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Yeah, thanks. Okay. Yeah. And you can you need the mouse. Yes.
Okay, can you guys hear me all right? Yeah, it's okay. Okay, yeah, thanks everyone for coming. My name's Logan, and yeah, I've been working at Wangka as a linguist for a little over 2 years now. And what I'm presenting today doesn't really have much to do with what I do at Wangka. This is more like my personal interest and what I eventually hope to get into more about. So I'm definitely not an expert in the study of writing systems. It's just, it's something that I'm really interested in. And when I was in university, I felt like it wasn't really covered. And it still is, you know, quite a small niche area of linguistics, I think. And so I just kind of wanted to give everybody a bit of an introduction and get more people interested in the field. But I think there's some people here who probably know more about writing systems than I do. So maybe afterwards, when we're having questions, everyone can participate. So yeah, just a little, is this the first? Yeah, so I'll talk just a bit about brief history of writing, and then I'll touch on differences between writing systems, script, and orthography, and then we'll get into typology, and then I'll give some interesting examples, or what I think are interesting examples, and some recently invented scripts. And I will talk a bit about Australia, and then we might have a little quiz if we have time. And then I wanted to share with you guys some useful resources, because yeah, it's such a small area. It's kind of difficult to find good resources in this area, I feel like. So just to start off with a brief history of writing, scholars kind of agree that writing probably was invented in at least four different cases in history, in Mesopotamia, in Egypt, in China, and in Mesoamerica. And the criteria for being a full writing system versus proto-writing is that it needs to be complete, have a purpose, a point must be made, and it needs to consist of symbols that can be made on a surface or now digitally. And also the symbols must somehow mimic speech. So I'll just talk about the four instances briefly. So writing in Mesopotamia. So cuneiform was developed in around 3400 BCE, and it was used up until the beginning of the Common Era. And it was made up of wedged impressions made from like little wooden reed slats, which form its signs. So it was developed to write Sumerian, but it was also used for a lot of other languages. But as far as I know, none of these languages are spoken anymore. And so it's a syllabary, which we haven't learned about yet, but we will. And it has over 1,000 distinct signs, which are made up of consonant vowel and vowel consonant pairs. And I won't really talk about the symbols right now. We might come back to them. But as you can see from the graph in the middle, they don't look similar to one another, which is kind of the point of a syllabary. Oh yeah, and here's another. This is just a few of them, obviously, because there are over 1,000 of them, but I just wanted you guys to see what they look like. So then writing in Egypt, this is probably the case that everyone is most familiar with. So it developed around 3250 BCE, and it is a logographic system, but it assigns each symbol with a consonant value, and it has more than 1,000 characters. And so it later evolved into Phoenician and Greek and Latin and Cyrillic. And it fell out of use in the 5th century. But then, as most people probably know, it was deciphered by Jean-François Champollion using the Rosetta Stone, which you can see in the British Library. And so yeah, all of the signs can be interpreted as phonograms, logograms, or ideograms. And there are 24 phonograms like similar to English. And this is also just an example of some of the symbols. So I wanted you guys to have a look. But anything you want to come back and look at later, just let me know. So then writing in China, which developed around 1200 BCE. And this is interesting to talk about. So there are like around 10,000 characters, but there's always this discussion of, especially as a foreigner, how many characters you need to be familiar with to, be fluent. And some sources say you need to know like 4,000, but some say 8,000. And even for reading a newspaper as well, some sources say you need to know like 3,000, but some say 8,000. But I don't know. But I just would say that, so for the Chinese foreign language exams for foreigners, there are 6 levels. They just changed it, now there are 9, but originally there are 6 levels. And to pass the 6th level, you need to be familiar with about 5,000 characters. And the 5th level is 2,500 characters. And I would just say that the 6th level is very difficult, and I think it's even difficult for Chinese people, but it still doesn't require much study. But I've passed the 5th level, and I would say that I could not very easily read a newspaper. At least right now. So it is somewhere like between 5,000 and 6,000, I would say. So yeah, uses pictograms and ideograms as what, but it also has phonosemantic characters. And as a lot of people probably know, it was simplified by the government in the 50s and 60s. And the majority of the characters are morphosyllabic. And yeah, this is just an example of some of the, this is the 1,500 most important characters that you're supposed to know. So I can come back to that later if anybody wants. I'll just get a drink real quick. So then writing in Mesoamerica developed around 500 BCE. And from when I was researching this, from what I saw, there are about 15 different scripts, and there isn't really a consensus on which one is the oldest, so which one is the original, but they think it's probably Maya, so that's one I included here. And so Maya is from Guatemala, and it was in use until the Spanish conquest in the 16th century. And it uses logograms and syllabograms. And yeah, it's interesting because unlike cuneiform in the previous slides, these languages are still spoken by like 6 million people in Guatemala and southern Mexico. And there's no Unicode yet, so I can show you guys a chart. So just really briefly, because even when I started doing this research, it was really confusing, and it's not really consistent in the literature, people's usage of writing system and script and orthography. So I just kind of wanted to try and clarify. So a writing system represents a language by segmenting it into a sequence of small discrete units, each represented by a grapheme, which is the image, the smallest identifiable unit of a writing system. And so writing systems are divided typologically depending on how these graphemes represent the linguistic units. So then the scripts are the actual graphemes or symbols used to write the language. And yeah, so the same script can be used to represent different languages. like the Roman alphabet for English and Spanish and Italian and everything. And then orthography refers to the way that a script is used to represent a language, including rules like spelling, word breaks, punctuation. So when I refer to a writing system, I am referring to the combination of a script and an orthography. And so today, I mean, I will be mostly talking about scripts. I'm not going to talk about punctuation or spelling. So now we'll get into the main typology of writing systems. Does anybody know what any of these are? Even just a name of a few of them? Anybody?
Abugidas.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Logographic.
Yep. Yep. Yep, that's pretty much all of them except for the one.
From Korea.
Yep, that's the other one I was going to say. So, and we'll get into the differences later. And yeah, also in the literature, they're, and you know, they're not concrete, like, it's difficult to categorize them. Yeah, it's not 100% logographic or 100% alphabetic. And also, you know, people cannot even agree on how to call them. So I'll talk about that a bit. But so yes, so there's alphabets, abjads, and in brackets is some of the other names that people call abjads. So partial phonemic script, consonantary, consonant alphabet. And then there's abugida, which some people call akshara, semi-alphabet, semi-syllabary, alpha-syllabary. And then there are syllabaries. And then there are logograms. And then featural, which is Korean, and actually a few others which I've found. So just to start off with, the one that everyone is most familiar with is alphabets. So alphabets are scripts that write all of their vowels as well as their consonants, whether each vowel is written uniquely or not. And yeah, so most of my definitions for the different typologies, I do use Daniel's definition, just by the way. So the graphemes represent syllables and vowels equally, although definitely not always uniquely as with English, because you can spell things a million different ways. So Greek was the first true alphabet, as it came from Phoenician, but Phoenician did not represent vowels. And then, so yeah, there are actually not that many true alphabets, at least from what I've seen, because when you really look at most of them, they're actually abugidas. But some of the ones that we're familiar with are like Latin, Cyrillic, Greek, and this is just a chart of the three of them and some of the graphemes that they share. So then, yeah, this is abjads, and this is also a term that came from Daniel's only in 1990, but I think it's caught on. So with abjads, graphemes predominantly represent consonants, and the reader has to infer the appropriate vowel. And diacritics can be used, but if you use too many diacritics, then it kind of is not an abjad anymore. And so, yeah, the name comes from the first four letters of the Arabic alphabet. That's Daniel's who did that. And so, yeah, the ones that everyone is familiar with are Hebrew and Arabic. And I think, I'm not very familiar with Hebrew and Arabic, but I think that most of the time they do not use the diacritic. I think they tend to leave it out. And so this example, up at the top is Phoenician, but down at the bottom is Hebrew, and the one on the, the one in the middle of the screen without the dots underneath it is the unpointed version, where you need to infer what the vowel is, but then you have the pointed version. Sorry, the quality of this is not very clear, but you have the pointed version, which tells you what the vowel is. But we'll see a few more of these in a bit.
Maybe you can, when you could minimize the windows because you can see the better of the screen.
Oh yeah, you can do that. Yeah, so you can see the pronunciation and the letters there without the vowels, but we can come back to that. And then you have abugidas, which are a set of graphemes with, and I'm going to contradict myself later, but usually with a consonant base, and then always modified by diacritics that represent the vowel. So the consonant vowel sequence will be one unit. And this next bullet point, this is another example of one of the names instead of abugida. It's a segmentally coded syllabically linear phonographic script. And yeah, I just thought it was a bit crazy that, you know, that someone, you know, who would remember to use that. And yeah, so they're descended from Phoenician, and then down into Aramaic, and then Brahmi, and then most of the Southeast Asian scripts in use today come from Brahmi. And so, yeah, Devanagari is used for over 120 different languages in and around India. And most of the scripts in this area are related to it. And I think I have a little chart here just so you can see. Yeah, so, well, I'll go back. I guess I don't have a pointer, but in the, on the left side of the screen, you can see if you go to the short section and then go under diacritic, you can see that you have the pa, pi, pu, and the red is the diacritic for the vowel. And so basically what I wanted to show here is that you can see that these characters are all very similar. And so that's the point of an abugida, is that you can at least infer. So when you're looking at these, if you're a learner, you can easily learn the initial consonant. And then you just need to learn the diacritics to attach to it. So they look really difficult to learn, but they're not. And then we have syllabaries. So each grapheme represents a syllable, and the graphemes are not distinguishable from one another. So that's kind of the main difference. So yeah, when you look at them, you should not be able to infer, you know, the initial consonant as you can with abugidas. And it's, yeah, because they're usually developed from logograms. And yeah, the examples that people know are Japanese katakana, and then there's Cherokee, which I might have included, I'm not sure. And then there's semantophonetic or logograms. So these are characters that represent words or morphemes and all have some phonetic components. So, which means they rely on the rebus principle. So the use of symbols for their sounds to represent new words, and regardless of what the original meaning of the symbol was. And I think we can probably talk more about this using that great new book. And so, yeah, some of the examples are Chinese, Egyptian hieroglyphics, and the example here that I have on the screen is Anatolian hieroglyphs. And then the last one, which is also kind of debatable among people, is the featural system. And the whole sort of category of featural comes from Korean Hangul, because most people just say it is an alphabet. But then, yeah, in 1990, Jeffrey Sampson tried to describe it in a different way. And so it represents characters in greater detail than a regular alphabet, and the symbols include features such as voicing and place of articulation. And so in Korean, you have featural units which are combined into letters, and then the letters are placed together in syllabic blocks. And that's why when you see, sorry, I don't have a whole example of something written in Korean, but the letters look like they're stacked upon one another. And it's interesting because when I've been reading about this, Korean is usually the only one, but I think that I've come across some others that I would categorize as featural. So I'll talk about those later. I might be incorrect, but I think there are definitely a few more. So I just wanted to give you guys a few main differences to think about, because when I was learning about all this, at the beginning it was difficult for me to remember the differences between abugida and abjad and syllabary. So alphabets represent consonants and vowels equally. Abjads only consist of consonants, and they can have the diacritic, but like I said, you can not have too many because then it's not an abjad. So ideally it should not have any vowels. And then you have abugidas, which consist of similar consonant bases with vowel diacritics, and you should be able to see similarities between the graphemes. And then syllabaries use the graphemes to represent syllables, but each character is completely unique, or sometimes maybe not completely unique, but not enough for you to establish a category. And yeah, you will not be able to recognize similarities between the graphemes. So now I'm going to give you guys some interesting scripts. This is the kind of where this whole presentation came from, was from me researching. Mostly, I'm quite interested in new scripts that have been developed for indigenous languages by people who kind of, for one reason or another, want to get away from using the Latin alphabet. So that's not what all of these are, but what some of them are. So here's one. And I went ahead and made the whole slideshow kind of like a quiz, but you guys don't have to guess what these ones are. So this is Osage, which is an alphabet that was created in 2006 by Herman Mongrain Lookout. And it is a modification of the Latin alphabet. And it's used for a Siouan language. So Osage is a Siouan language that's spoken in Oklahoma by only about 15 to 20 elderly people. And they wanted to, the creation of this language was sort of a push to get more people to learn and use the language to try to save it. And it was included in Unicode in 2016. And I mean, I have not really talked about Unicode that much, but I think everyone knows it's, you know, the body where you submit, it's difficult to explain, but you submit the writing systems to Unicode, and if they accept it, then you are able to use it on the computer, on the phone, and on the internet. And so, and then I try to just include something interesting about each system. So this one, it is an alphabet, but long vowels, high tones, and long vowels with high tones are indicated with diacritics above the letters. So you can see that in the example below. And here's another one. And this one is called Luo Lakeside, and it's another alphabet which was created by Kepa Ombewa in Kenya in 2009. And it's an alternate for writing Do Luo, which is a Nilotic language spoken in Kenya and Tanzania. And it was submitted to Unicode in 2019, but I don't think it's been accepted yet. And it consists of 33 letters connected with a line running along the bottom, which you can see. And it has 5 vowels, but as I was looking at it, I thought that it was quite interesting because So it has 5 vowels with 1 diacritic to differentiate the vowel. So, and as you can see over there in the corner, you just have this line and then the diacritic. So is it really a full alphabet if it does that? We can talk about that later, I guess. Here's another one. So this one is Chipina, and it's an abjad, which is used to write many Berber languages, which are spoken in North Africa, in Morocco, Tunisia, Algeria, Libya, and Mali. And it was added to Unicode in 2005. And yes, from what I read, some people suggest that it's related to Phoenician. Oh, I should point out, so a full alphabetic version was introduced in the 20th century, but I say that vowels are basically diacritics because if you look at the example text in the bottom, whenever you see the teeny tiny little circles, those are the vowels that were introduced in like the last 50 years. And so I think that some people use them, some people don't. But what I wanted to point out is that I think, you know, if you were to remove them from this sample text, you would still be able to easily know what it was saying. And so you would easily be able to read it as an abjad. But I guess they wanted to make it a full alphabet for simplification. This is another one. Oh yeah, this is Phoenician, which I spoke about a bit earlier. So it was developed from Proto-Canaanite in the 15th century BCE. And it was used for Northern Semitic language that was spoken in present-day Lebanon, Syria, and Israel. And it originally had no vowel indication, 22 letters, and each letter is acrophonic and can be traced back to a specific Egyptian hieroglyph. And yeah, as you can see in the chart, no vowels. And it's in Unicode as well. Here's another one. This one I think is quite interesting, and just by, well, I guess we can kind of start the quiz now. Just by looking at it, can you tell what kind of writing system it is? Yeah. There's a sample. Yeah, so this one is called Mwangwego, and it's an abugida developed by Nolens Mwangwego in 1977 for Malawian and Bantu languages. And it's mostly used for Chewa language, which is spoken in Malawi. And yeah, submitted to Unicode, but not accepted, not sure why, after almost 10 years. Must have some kind of issue. And yet, I think it's a really great script, but for one reason or another, it has not really caught on, and it only has about 400 users, apparently. But hopefully it catches on because I think it's a really interesting script. Here's another one, and yeah, as you can see, in sets, the symbols are similar to one another. There's an example. So yeah, this is Bebean, and it's a pre-Hispanic Filipino abugida that was used from 13th until the 17th century when the Spanish arrived. And it was used for multiple languages across the Philippines. And it did survive in some areas, and it has developed into new scripts in a few different islands. And I think I'm going to talk about another one of them in a bit. And yeah, it's currently seeing a resurgence in the Philippines, which is really cool. People are really interested in it and starting to use it again. And I think I have a photo. Yeah, so they've recently put it on the 100 peso note. So I thought that that was really cool.
How words phrase it?
And then, yeah, you might be able to guess where this is from by the look of it. So this, I guess I need to pull up the whole thing. So this is modern E. The top is classic E, which are logograms, but in 1974, the Chinese government took the logographic system and turned it into a syllabary. And so an example of the syllabary is down below in these trilingual signs, but I think I have a chart on the next page as well. So it is the official script of the Nuosu E language, spoken by about 2 million people in Sichuan and Yunnan. And it has over 756 basic glyphs, but more when you add tone diacritics. And it has, 1,164 graphemes in Unicode, which I think for anything that is not a logographic system is the most. And this is just a small chunk of what it looks like because there are over 1,000 characters, but it's really interesting looking. And yeah, like if you go down the category, if you go down the letter, down the columns, sometimes you can see a similarity, but if you go all the way down from the top to the bottom, you would not be able to recognize a similarity. So that's what makes it a syllabary. I've got another one here. Am I okay for time?
Okay.
This is Vi, which is a syllabary developed in the 1830s by Momolu Duwalo Bukele in Liberia for the Vi language. Pretty small one, spoken by only 115,000 people in Liberia and Sierra Leone. And I'm not so sure, but from what I read, it said that it is the second most successful indigenous script used in Africa today. So people are using it. And yeah, it was added to Unicode in 2008. Here's another one, and this one is really interesting. This one is called Mandombe, and I've called it a featural alphabet because it's organized into syllabic blocks. It was developed in 1978 for the 4 languages of the Congo, which are all Bantu languages. So consonants and vowels are combined into blocks like in Korean, and all letters are based off of a sacred S-like shape from the local culture. And so it's very interesting because, so if you look at the chart, the orientation of the consonant determines the sound. So if you go to group 1 and look across, you can see that the shape is the same, but depending on how you connect the consonant to the vowel, it will either be a na, a ba, a sa, or a ta. And you have these 4 categories all the way down. So yeah, you will have one symbol which can represent 4 different sounds, but depending on the orientation around the vowel will change the sound. So I thought that that was really, really interesting. This is another one. This is the one that I sort of advertised because I think that this one is really cool as well. The top image is so this is called Ditema Tsadinoko, and I also call it a featural syllabary, and it was invented in the 2010s by a group of linguists and designers for Southern Bantu languages. You can definitely tell that it was designed by designers. And so it's based on traditional images of Southern Africa, which in Sesotho are called Litema, and that's that image at the top. So this is where they got the inspiration for it. So, and I'll talk about it a bit more. I have a chart on the next page as well. But so consonant and vowel graphemes are combined into blocks. And in this case, this is why earlier I said that I was going to contradict myself. In this case, the vowels form the base. But as I have not seen any other writing system that does that. There's a really good chart on the next page, but the direction of the triangle indicates the vowel, and the position of the consonant grapheme, which is found inside or outside the triangle, indicates the place of articulation, and the shape indicates the manner. So it sounds... And the colors do not have anything to do with the pronunciation, but I read that certain colors may have spiritual, ethnic, or religious associations. So this is the vowel chart. So depending on the direction and whether the triangle is open or closed will determine the vowel. And then also if you can indicate nasal vowels by including a dot at the tip. And then these are the how you do the consonants. And so I'll kind of just let you guys look at it for a second. But yeah, you can see it has different ways. I don't know, can you see the top of this? Can they see the top of the screen? Oh, yeah. But we can come back and look at this later. But yes, I don't know how much this writing system will catch on, but it's really, when was it created? Only about 10 years ago. Yeah. And yeah, I'm not sure how many people are using it, but I know recently I attended like a typology or not a TypeScript conference, and there were some designers in South Africa who said that they had been working with this script. So I think people know about it. And this is one more. This is the one that I worked with. So when I did my master's at SOAS in the UK, I worked with a writing system from, well, I'll show you. So it's called and it doesn't really even have a proper name. It's called the Crawford Alphabet for Shanghainese. And it's actually was a manuscript that my advisor had found in the Oxford Library, and he had been wanting to do something with this script, and I knew that I wanted to work with Shanghainese with something for my dissertation, and so he suggested for me to work with this script, and that's actually how I became interested in scripts in the first place, was from working with this one. And I call it a featural alphabet. It was invented by T.P. Crawford and his wife Martha. She doesn't ever get any of the credit. They were American Baptist missionaries in Shanghai in the 1850s. And so with this one, the initial consonant on the left and the final vowel on the right are combined into blocks to form the equivalent of one Chinese character. And so there are 41 initials and 28 finals that can all be combined. And you can combine all of them, but obviously not all of those sounds actually exist in Shanghainese. And yeah, these are two of the manuals that we found. And actually, so the manual with the pronunciation on it, I did not have that manual when I was doing the project. I only had the other one with just the Chinese characters on it. And so I had to sit with a Shanghainese speaker for weeks and sort of transcribe the manual. But then we found this other one later and we were correct, so. Yeah, and it has a really ingenious way of representing the 8 tones of Shanghainese. So now Shanghainese only has 5 tones, but in the 1850s it had 8 tones. And so the way that he devised to represent tone, do I need to move this? Yes. So each character is divided by a line, and then depending on what's on the left is the consonant and what's on the right is the vowel. But at the bottom, if you have this hook, that means that it's in the lower tonal class. And if you don't have it, it's in the upper tonal class. So it's kind of dividing 4 and 4. And then, so if you have the hook and then you have a dot in the lower left corner, it's just like this is one tone, and then this is a second one, this is a third one. And if you have no dot, that's a fourth one. And then it's another, you do it 4 more times, whether you have the hook or you don't, if that makes sense. And this is just what it looks like when it's written. This is a copy of Aesop's Fables, actually written in this system. So I thought that was interesting. And this is just one of the tables. This is what I included in my dissertation. As part of it, we sort of tried to restore the characters to what would be IPA equivalent today, because IPA was not around when this was made. And I had to, it's obviously not, I don't know anyone else that's ever worked with this writing system, so it's obviously not available in Unicode. So I actually had to like draw those characters myself. And so, yeah, that's kind of it for the writing systems, but I also didn't want to completely leave Australia out of the picture. So, and I don't know much about message sticks, but I recently found out a bit about them, and I think they're really interesting. And I'm definitely going to look into them more. But, you know, basically all I know is that they were passed between people and language groups to submit different kinds of messages, like marriages or burials or invitation to corroborees. They gave the carrier protection. They were made from wood and around 10 to 20 centimeters. And unfortunately, there's not much research since the 1890s that I was able to find, but I'm sure that there are a few people in this room who know some things about message sticks. But I also did, if anybody's interested in it, I don't know if anybody knows who Piers Kelly is. I'm going to talk about him again in a minute in terms of the useful resources. But he studies writing systems, and he's at in New England. And he's said that he's looking for a student to work on message sticks with him. So someone go study message sticks with Piers Kelly. Now, yeah, am I still okay for time? Yeah. I don't have that much left, and then we can have questions. So this is the real quiz now. So can anybody have a quick guess at what this might be, what kind of writing system this might be, or maybe where it came from?
Is it from Maldives?
Yeah, have you seen it before?
Yeah, I don't remember what it's called.
It's called Thana, and it's an abugida developed for Maldivian, and yeah, it's derived from Arabic, as you know, it's pretty clear. So 1 point for you. Anybody have a guess about this one? Even I'm trying to look at it and remember.
I would say it's abjad, just because there's not that many characters in each word.
Alphabet. So this one is Moreau, and it was developed in the 1980s for a language spoken in the Chittagong Hills Tract in Bangladesh. Yeah, sorry, I don't have any more information about that one. But I guess, yeah, the reason it's considered full alphabet is because it has it has its own grapheme for each vowels, and they're not treated as diacritics. Oh yeah, I sort of spoke about this one earlier. Can anyone tell where that one might be related to? And yeah, I think if you look at this one going down, you can tell what kind of writing system it is. Nope. This one is still, yeah, it's still an abugida because like, so go all the way over to the side and you see the pa, pi, pu. They're all very similar except for that line, which is either up at the top or down at the bottom. So yeah, that's what makes it an abugida. And this one is for buhid, which is one of those ones that I was talking about that developed from Bebeyan. And so I think this one is still used, not by very many people, but still used by some people in Mindoro in the Philippines. Yeah, and that's all I have. I just wanted to really quickly, though, share some really good resources with you guys. And I can share this afterwards for anybody who wants it. But like most of the graphs, the images that I use came from Omniglot, which is an encyclopedia of writing systems and languages. Has anybody used it before? Yeah, it's really, really crazy.
Facebook page.
Yeah, it's the guy who runs it. His name is Simon Adger, I think. Yeah, it's really interesting. If I click on it, will it open?
I hope so.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just. I won't go through all of them, but I'll just show you guys the most important ones.
It might not be shared.
Oh.
So you should have to stop sharing your screen and then. Maybe go straight to new share. Do the same.
Yeah. New share. Oh yeah. Go.
Stop share. Go to stop share maybe and then new share.
So now go back and share? Or what can you see on there?
Not the right thing. Yeah, try again, because then you have two screens when you start. When you try to share, go again to share screen. This one. Okay, try again. Yeah.
No, it's okay?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, I'll just show you briefly, but yeah, you can go to writing systems and you can see them in order, or you can filter it by abjad, abugida, syllabic.
And this is the scripts. That's
I forgot about that. That's on here as well. Yeah, and constructed scripts. Yeah, let's have a look.
Scripts are there?
Yeah, linear A, Fresco's dis, old Elamite, and but yeah,
and yeah, of course there wouldn't be that much material for each. So
yeah. But and then if we go back, writing system, we just pick let's see. I'll show you guys because I didn't put this in the presentation.
Yeah, and someone suggested that answer for whether the ones you showed.
Cherokee?
Yeah, Thomas suggested Cherokee.
Yeah, so let's look at Cherokee. So, spoken in the U.S. and let's see, does it have the? Oh yeah, Cherokee syllabary.
This is what we usually use in applied linguistics and get them to try and write something.
Yeah, so it's got everything here. And actually, I didn't put this in the presentation, but the script that I spoke about, the syllabary that was from the 1820s from Liberia, they think maybe it came from this script because there's a record of a Cherokee man moving to Liberia at that time, and apparently, like they look quite similar, and it just kind of matches up that he happened to be there right at that time that this one was also invented. So yeah, this is a really great website. Let me show you guys just a few more.
Is Cherokee still being used?
I don't think so.
You can Google in Cherokee.
Oh, you can.
There's various Cherokee websites.
Clothing.
And I know that, yeah, I think a lot of groups try to pick it up. I think a lot of groups try to use it as a base for creating their own sometimes, from what I've seen.
In applied linguistics, you're just trying to raise their awareness, you know, because they're captured in an alphabet.
Yeah.
Confusion.
And then there's endangeredalphabets.net. Has anybody heard of that one? Yeah, it's really interesting. It's run by a guy named Tim Brooks in the US, but
So remember that the people in
Can they-
Zoom can't.
oh, I have to change
It
it.
should be fine because it's the.
Is it the right screen? Can you see it on there?
Oh, you're right. Yes.
Yeah, okay. So this one, same. This one is really focused on endangered alphabets. So if they're like really widely used ones, will not be found on here. But you know, you can just let's pick one. Oh, there's Cherokee again. Oh, there's Canadian Aboriginal syllabics.
Do alphabets or scripts that are created and don't pick up, are they considered endangered?
I think by this website, yes, they have lots of ones that weren't really that were created and not
I
picked
have
up.
one. I created an alphabet when I was 11.
Oh, you can put it. Let's see. Oh, well, it has information, and then you can go. It'll have links to everywhere that has more information about this writing system, and then maybe it will have some images about of the script. So that's what this one looks like. What else have I got? Oh yeah, and then just a few more, like there's worldswritingsystems.org. Decode Unicode is a really cool website where I will show you. So if you go to scripts and we do this one. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Let's just do Georgian because I can see that one. There you go. So once you can figure out how to navigate to this page for each language, you can actually click on the image for each individual character. And then down below, it will give you all of the information about it. And so, yeah, I guess it's good for if you're trying to learn some calligraphy. But it's a really great website. And are there any others that I wanted to? Yeah, Graphematics is a grapholinguistic conference that takes place every other year. And then these are just some others. Oh yeah, there's a mailing list, if anyone's interested, called Scriptish, which is people sharing information about writing systems. I just included Translators Without Borders because they do try to do stuff in minority languages and minority scripts. And then there's a Unicode website And sorry, I forgot to mention this one over here on the left, the Brave New Words. That's Piers Kelly's blog with loads of really good information about writing systems on it. And he has a whole section. I didn't find it until after I was almost done with the presentation, but he has a whole section about writing sticks or about message sticks on there. So that's probably, he has a list of all of the information that is available. So if you're looking to learn more about those, definitely go to his blog. And then, yeah, some of the books, just like kind of general manuals for writing systems are the, Daniel's one, which I tend to use a lot. And then there's Writing Systems of the World by Florian Kulmas. And then there's a new one about creating orthographies for endangered languages by Marie Jones. And I think that's all I have. And yep, there's my bibliography. And yeah, if anybody wants me to share, I need to fix up the sources. All of my sources are down below in the notes, but I'll fix it up. And then if anybody wants a copy of the presentation or anything, I'm happy to share it. So yeah.
If you don't mind, I would suggest that we stop recording for
yeah, that's okay.
because it's going to be messy and it's just going to
make
it fast.
Yeah.